Hello, Akamai developers, and welcome back to the series. My name is Rachel, and I'm your host. The Akamai Developer webinar series is here to help you work better with Akamai. Learn how to manage Akamai-as-Code, Akamai-as-Data, or integrate Akamai together with other tools and technologies. This series broadcasts once every 3 weeks, so be sure to check back in to our webinar schedule linked in the resources to the right. Our webinar today will start with a brief showcase of Terraform and the Akamai Terraform Provider, and then jump into a series of demos highlighting some of our favorite use cases. After the demo, we will have a Q&A session. Please feel welcome to leave questions in the Q&A box on the left throughout the webinar. If you have any questions at a later stage or were unable to answer your questions today, please let us know by reaching out by email. Lastly, there will be a brief interactive quiz where you can compete with fellow attendees on what we have presented today. The top 3 winners will get a prize sent to their email inbox. Below on the far right, we have a brief survey so you can share your thoughts on the content and format. Please help us by completing this survey and letting us know what topics you'd like to see next. You can also find links for additional learning in our resources section to the right of the screen. Please welcome our speaker for today, Mike Ellison from the Developer Advocacy team here at Akamai Technologies. Mike is an Akamai veteran with 10+ years of experience consulting with the largest companies in the world on their digital strategy and solution architecting. He aims to Akamize as many digital applications by automating the process and by sharing his knowledge. All right, Mike, let's get this ball rolling.
Thank you, Rachel, and welcome again to everyone for attending today's webinar. Let's get started with a quick introduction to Terraform. Terraform is a tool for building, changing, and versioning infrastructure safely and efficiently. Terraform is the first multi-vendor infrastructure tool that was created by HashiCorp. The simple syntax that Terraform uses and the ability to combine infrastructure and create consistency amongst multiple technology vendors in one makes Terraform a great tool in every company's DevOps toolchain. Terraform is categorized as a continuous configuration automation tool, also known as CCA, and these tools play a great role in the overall infrastructure as code strategy of companies. Other CCA tool examples are Chef, Puppet, or Ansible. Managing Akamai solutions through Terraform is one of the key requests from customers and partners using Akamai Developer. And in the session today, we will explain what is included in the Akamai Terraform Provider, what the roadmap is, showcase a variety of demos with different use cases, and share where you can get started and find more information. Now that said, let's get started on our main topic today, manage your Akamai-as-Code with Terraform. If you have any questions, please feel free to raise them in the Q&A section. Since the inception of Terraform in 2014, it has been widely adopted as one of the main infrastructure as code tools. Now looking here at the Google search trends, you can see clearly that Terraform is gaining popularity amongst DevOps engineers, and for certain organizations is now the main tool for change management in infrastructure. Terraform addresses a need to manage infrastructure from a wide variety of vendors, including the main cloud provider vendors such as Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud Platform. And this concept is called a Terraform provider. A provider is responsible for wrapping the individual vendors' APIs and allows for execution of different actions through the Terraform syntax. Furthermore, HashiCorp enables developers with tools such as the Vault to secure their credentials and Terraform variables to tokenize attributes across different environments, thus providing the flexibility that you are looking for in CI/CD driven workflows. Akamai plays a major role in the digital ecosystem of many organizations, whether it is managing your DNS and load balancing, or delivering and securing web applications, APIs, and content. Now, these organizations that are adopting Terraform in their DevOps toolbox are, of course, looking at Akamai to offer an Akamai Terraform provider in order to manage their Akamai solutions through Terraform. Now, as of the Akamai Spring release in 2020, there is now the Akamai Terraform provider available which has been officially reviewed and approved by HashiCorp. The main provider code is available on the Terraform Providers GitHub. The full functionality that is supported can be found today on the Terraform's provider documentation page. Now, with this official HashiCorp seal of approval, it is now possible for you to run the Terraform init command and get set up instantly with the Akamai Terraform Provider. In order to use the provider, Terraform needs to be installed as well as proper authentication to make requests. Now, you are able to install Terraform as a standalone installation, but if you install the Akamai development environment, Terraform will come pre-installed. And installation instructions are available on either developer.akamai.com or by watching the video Getting Started with the Akamai Development Environment. Authentication to Akamai happens through Akamai-as-Code, and this is similar to how we're utilizing that with Akamai APIs or Akamai CLI. You will need an API client with the right permissions to the APIs, as well as a set of valid API credentials. And you can learn more on how to do this on developer.akamai.com or by watching the video Getting Started with Akamai APIs. Now, for authenticating your Terraform configurations and placing your API credentials in there are multiple ways of doing so. The easiest is by adding your API credentials inline in the configuration, but this is of course less secure. Now, secondly, you're also able to store them in a HGrid file, typically called the .hrc file, and that is similar to how we're doing that with the Akamai CLI. Now, the third and safest option is by using Terraform variables and referring to the secrets in the vault. Now, in order to fully use the Akamai Terraform Provider and setting up your API client in the right way, please make sure that your Akamai API client has read-write permissions to the following APIs: the Property Manager API, the DNS API, or the Traffic Management API. And that gives us a quick sneak peek of some of the functionality that is available today. So let's dive deeper on the functionality that is supported today. First, the Akamai Terraform Provider allows you to manage your DNS and load balancing configurations if you have access to Akamai's Edge DNS, which was formerly known as Fast DNS, or Global Traffic Management, or GTM. You are able to fully manage your DNS zones, your DNS records, as well as any load balancing configurations that you have configured in GTM. The Akamai Terraform Provider also allows you to fully manage your delivery configurations through property management. Akamai's Property Management API, also known as PAPI, is wrapped inside the provider and allows you to fully manage all of your Akamai configurations. Now, use cases range from creating brand new configurations to updating settings and rules in existing configurations, as well as the ability to deploy configuration versions to either the Akamai staging or Akamai production networks. Akamai Property Management allows you to manage a variety of Akamai solutions, including but not limited to the following solutions: the Akamai performance solutions, such as Dynamic Site Accelerator and Ion, but also the Akamai media delivery solutions, such as Object Delivery, Download Delivery, and Adaptive Media Delivery. Now, there is also additional functionality available, like managing Akamai Edge hostnames and managing Akamai Content Provider Codes, or CP codes. Now, finally, we have also created the Akamai Terraform CLI package. Now, Akamai offers the Akamai command line interface with different packages that offers different functionality. And the Terraform CLI package is designed and included in the Akamai development environment that can help you get started with the Akamai Terraform Provider faster. Now, the Terraform CLI package allows you to specify an existing Akamai delivery configuration or an existing DNS zone with its record set and easily export this to a proper Akamai Terraform configuration for you. And this way, all that heavy lifting is taken right away from you. Now that describes the current functionality in the Akamai Terraform Provider today as of June 2020. And the current state of the Akamai Terraform Provider will allow you to manage the majority of your use cases, as well as treat your Akamai-as-Code with Terraform. Now, of course, Akamai is committed to adding more functionality to the Akamai Terraform Provider over time. And at this stage, we are currently exploring several use cases with our engineering teams and finding the right prioritization and developing this new functionality. Now, these use cases could include the following. First, the ability to manage your security configurations. And currently, this is only supported through the use of either the Application Security API or the AppSec CLI package. We are aiming to include support for this API inside of the Akamai Terraform Provider. And what this will do is it will allow you for management of security rules through the products such as Kona Site Defender and Vault Manager, as well as the ability to manage host names, match targets, and resources inside of those security policies. Secondly, we also have the ability to manage your SSL and TLS certificates hosted on the Akamai platform. This is currently only supported through the Certificate Provisioning System API, or CPS CLI package. We are of course aiming to include support for this API as well, and this will allow you to create new certificates or update existing certificates by adding new host names and change its metadata. Now, with these use cases, we believe that we can cover the majority of requests for managing Akamai-as-Code with Terraform. On the larger roadmap, we are exploring additional functionality for other Akamai solutions. You can think of solutions such as Akamai's Image or Video Manager, Akamai API Gateway, Akamai Media Services Live, and other solutions that we have in our portfolio. Now, we recommend you to follow developer.akamai.com for updates on any new functionality to be added in the Akamai Terraform Provider. Now, our aim at Akamai Developer is, of course, to help support you, our customers and partners, to better manage your Akamai solutions through the tools that you prefer to use. And in the case of the Akamai Terraform Provider, we are very eager to hear directly from you in regards to any use cases that are not mentioned just now, either the functionality that is already supported or the ones that we just mentioned to be added on the roadmap. We really encourage you to send us your feedback by filling in the survey at the end of this webinar, as well as again following Akamai Developer. Now, we hope that this gives you a good overview on what the Akamai Terraform Provider is and the main use cases that it supports and will support. We will now continue with showcasing how this is actually handled through a variety of short demos that we've prepared for you today. Now, if you have any questions, again, please raise them in the Q&A section and we will answer them at the end of the session. In the demo today, we will be showcasing the aforementioned Akamai Terraform Provider functionality in greater detail. Now, if you're interested in applying any of this for your own infrastructure, we encourage you to take a look at the GitHub code examples that are available. And the links are available in the resources section in the webinar. Now, the demos today will showcase the following. First, export existing configuration and DNS zones with the Akamai Terraform CLI package. Second, managing your DNS zones and records by creating a new record that will serve as our new subdomain called terraform.schrodingerstudios.com. Thirdly, manage your Akamai configurations by creating and deploying a brand new Akamai delivery configuration that is going to deliver the hostname terraform.schrodingerstudios.com, including all the features like caching. And finally, manage the origin and integrations with other vendors. And in this demo, we are going to be creating a brand new Google Cloud Platform bucket that will store images and act as our origin. And for this demo, we will be using my code editor of choice, Visual Studio Code. And Visual Studio Code comes with an official GitHub and Terraform integration, which is great for use cases on managing your infrastructure as code. So let's navigate there. Before we start the main demo on managing infrastructure as code and creating our brand new DNS, origin, and Akamai configuration, We will first start with showcasing the Akamai Terraform CLI package. Again, this package is aimed at importing your existing configuration and DNS zones easily to get started faster. And the Akamai Terraform CLI package comes pre-installed with the Akamai development environment. And by running the following command, we will initiate the Akamai development environment. This is a Docker image, and with this command, I am binding the local directories that I need, as well as API credential files for both Akamai and Google that I'm stored on my machine to be used with the environment. I will navigate to the GitHub folder as I'm also managing my entire infrastructure as code by storing it in a GitHub repository. It's quite easy to accomplish, and more information on this use case is available on developer.akamai.com. Now for this demo, I have several demo scripts prepared with all the commands that I need. And as you can see here, by running the following command, we are going to be creating several subdirectories and then running the Akamai Terraform command to initiate the Akamai Terraform CLI. First, what we'll do is we'll create the Terraform configuration for an Akamai configuration that already exists. The existing config content.schrodingerstudio.com is being grabbed from the Akamai platform and stored in its own Terraform configuration file, as well as the Akamai rules in JSON format. And now we're basically able to manage Akamai-as-Code through Terraform. We can make manual changes into our JSON, we can check them into GitHub, and then deploy them with the Akamai Terraform Provider and basically manage our entire Akamai configuration as code. And here you can actually see that file. It loads in all the resources in Terraform. It makes a reference to the Akamai JSON. It loads in the CP code, edge hostname, and properties. And of course, you will also have the rules.json here. But let's continue with the DNS case. We can also import our entire DNS zone, and I'm showcasing it here again by running the Akamai Terraform command with create zone. Now what this does, it creates both a resources file that contains all the records, as well as the Terraform configuration that uses it. And as you can see here, we have all the different records. We have all the DNS records that are available, Let's Encrypt validations, CNAME records that are all nicely located in this file. So there you have it, nicely imported into directories. And now let's go and move on to the main demo of today, which is actually creating our configuration. So I'm going to be closing out this demo script right here. And keep in mind, use your Akamai Terraform commands, and more information on this can be found on the Akamai CLI Terraform GitHub repo. So please take a look there. So that wraps up the first phase of our demo today, importing existing Akamai objects easily into Terraform configuration files. And we really invite you to try this out yourself by, again, installing the Akamai development environment, then creating your API client with the right credentials, and then just create those Terraform configurations and be well on your way in order to start using it. But let's continue on with the main demo for today, creating our infrastructure from scratch. So I'm going to navigate to the right folder again and run another pre-created scripts that will go through all the commands. First, we will show that nothing has been pre-created for this demo, and by running the following commands, we will see that neither the DNS entry, the Akamai hostname, or the Google Cloud Origin bucket with a test URL exists. So let's start with creating our content. So here we have our DNS Terraform configuration file. It contains all the records that are needed and that are in part of my zone. What we'll do now is we'll uncomment the following records, which are actually the ones that I need to create for my demo. This is terraform.schrodingerstudios.com, which is CNAMEd to the Akamai hostname, as you can see here. And then we'll also have terraform-staging, because we're going to be testing on staging right now for the sake of time. And of course, that we'll be running that. Interestingly, I'm managing in Visual Studio Code Akamai-as-Code through GitHub. With the plugin, I can just basically simply commit it, saying, writing a note, update DNS, creating terraform.schrodingerstudios.com, hit enter, and then also push that down to a GitHub repository, as you can see here, github.com/akamai-mike/schrodingerstudios.git. And all my changes will be saved as code nice and easily on GitHub. Well, that's that. Now we can continue with our demo. So let's run the demo script and show, of course, that nothing has been pre-created for this demo. Here we go. Here, as you can see, Terraform.Schrodinger Studios is empty. It doesn't result into anything, so that hostname doesn't exist yet. Here you can see the test URL towards Google. It results in a 404, which means that this object doesn't exist. And actually, of course, the entire bucket doesn't exist either. So next, we're actually going to be running the command to go to this DNS Terraform file. And here you can see we're putting our HRC file in there. And as shown, we are just putting each individual resource in its own place, and then it continues on. So we are going to be rolling this out. And as you can see, you can have support for everything. CNAMEs, Akamai CDN records. I'm also using the Let's Encrypt validations in here. Just in general, a great way, nicely structured, to have all your records neatly located in one simple file. And of course, storing that on GitHub is really the great way forward. So there we go. We are going to be seeing here, as you can see, we have the script. It is initializing the Terraform provider and then also running the actual commands. So as you can see here, it's refreshing the states. And if we go back with the Terraform init command, we have now initialized Terraform. It loads in the latest version, 0.7, and it will run that and save that in your folder under the .terraform file. And then if you run either Terraform plan or Terraform apply, you can see it's actually refreshing the state, which are records that already existed. But for these two new records that we created, it's actually going to add them. And it will take around 60 to 90 seconds or so for these records to be created and be propagated through the Akamai platform on HDNS. And that's basically how you can go about. Now, next up, what we're going to be doing is we're also going to be creating our Google infrastructure. So again, we have here our Google Terraform Provider configuration with the right project and region, as well as here we are going to be creating an actual storage bucket. We are, of course, adding in the public read all options as well, and also creating and uploading the image. So we have an Akamai Developer.png that is actually going to be used for authentication. So there we have it. Now, interestingly, you also need a JSON file to authenticate your credentials. So it's a little bit different than EdgeGrid, but again, this is available on the Terraform documentation for the provider. We're loading in again with Terraform init, the most recent version, which is 3.26 for Google. And as you can see here, we are now creating our bucket. We're creating our object itself, and then also our access control to make sure that it's public. So very simple. In the span of 20 seconds, we have our origin set up with our image, and we are ready to go. Now the only thing that is left is we need to actually create our Akamai configuration. So we're going to be doing that next here. It's loading in again Terraform init, running the provider 0.7. And here you can see it's actually loading in the local file, the JSON file. It's creating and checking everything in terms of contract and group, CP codes, edge hostname, and it's creating that. And then here we are actually going to be creating our property and activating that already directly to the Akamai staging platform. But here we have our actual Terraform file, so we'll go through that. First, again, we're calling the HRC file. Then next up, we have our actual rules.json. This is containing all the rules, and we'll get back to it in a little bit. We have our contract and group specifying where we actually want this to be stored. Then we have here the Akamai CP code, which we're just going to call CP code, and then we are naming the CP code terraform.schrodingerstudios.com. We're specifying that this is for the download delivery product, and of course adding in our contract and group. And we do the same thing for edge hostname. Again, we're specifying product, contract group, as well as the IP versions here. And again, we're using schrodingerstudios.akamai.net, which we already saw in the DNS entry that is our target for the CNAME. So, have to make sure that those match. Then here is the main part of the demo is, of course, the Akamai property. This is the actual Akamai delivery configuration that we're creating. We're naming it, we're adding in a contact for notifications, adding the product, and then here we have the host name. So again, as mentioned, we are using Terraform and Terraform-staging host names in order to utilize that in our configuration. And then here we have our rules. Now this is the actual JSON file, and I'll navigate there. This contains all the rules, all the default rules, all the child rules that are in here. This is a relatively simple configuration as it's just delivering content. And here you can see we're actually specifying in the behavior our origin, which is storage.googleapis.com, which again, we created here in the Google Cloud bucket. Also, what we have here is, of course, the base directory, terraform-schrodingerstudios.com, to ensure that, of course, we are mapping to the right bucket on Google, and we can do that with this base directory. So we basically have all our behaviors listed in this configuration, nicely neat, tucked away in a JSON, and you can update that whenever you want, and that's just loading in. Now next up is also activating, and as you can see here with property activation, in this case we're doing that to network staging, you're actually able to activate your configuration, which we're seeing, of course, run right now. We're 2.5 minutes in. You can also activate to production, running a new configuration to production. It takes around 10 minutes or so, whereas on staging it should last you between 3 to 4 minutes. So as you can see, that is going on here on the screen. It takes about 2.5 minutes so far, and it just takes about 1.5 minutes to finish. So we really have everything up and running right now. We have our Google bucket, we have our DNS entries, we are right now deploying our Akamai configuration, and then we are basically good to go, and we can go ahead and actually test our, as you can see here, you will have the ability to run simple curl commands. So again, we're running a curl against the origin that should result in a 200. And then also what we're doing is we're running a command towards Terraform-staging. So that means our DNS record is now created, the Akamai configuration is deployed, and we're also running the pragma headers, the Akamai pragma headers here, as you can see on your screen, to actually get some diagnostic data back based on our request to verify things like whether or not the object is in cache. So again, very powerful to have basically everything be created out of nothing, and then the ability to also test and verify if that is working. So again, really, really powerful. And again, you can use your existing configurations with the Akamai Terraform CLI package. Utilize some of the commands and scripts that you've seen here. And actually, here we go. Our configuration is now completing on activation. Let's verify. I think it took just a little over 4 minutes. There you go. Creation complete after 4 minutes. It created all the resources, and it already in our script to run the actual command. So here we have the command to run against Google. We see a 200 OK, so we know that the actual image is working. Our Google bucket is working just fine. And here we actually have our Terraform code. So we get a 200 OK back from Akamai. In this case, it's the Akamai staging server. What's interesting here is the TCP refresh miss. That means that our particular staging server did not have the object in cache, which makes sense because it was the first request. And that's why we're running it a second time. Again, 200 OK. And here you go. Xcache TCP memhit means it was served out of memory. Again, from the same staging server. And our object is now in cache. And there you have it. We basically created, out of nowhere, a DNS entry, an origin with Google Cloud, and also our Akamai delivery configuration in less than 5 minutes or so. So it's a very powerful tool. And again, right now what I could do is I could actually add behaviors in here, and instead of creating a configuration, start modifying it. And again, managing Akamai-as-Code with Terraform. So it's a very powerful tool to have everything set up. And with the Terraform CLI package, you're just easily able to import your existing configurations and start using this. And we're very eager for your feedback, so please let us know if this can help you in any way in your workflow and how you will apply this in the future. Now this ends our demo today, and we're going to be returning back to Google Slides where we can show a little bit more about the actual best practices, resources, and then we're going to be rounding out with our Q&A and of course our quiz. So with the demos out of the way, we have focused on several use cases, and you can take advantage of this framework and start building out more use cases. For instance, you are able to integrate GitHub on top of this, where the Terraform configurations are fully stored on GitHub. All your changes are committed to your GitHub repository, and from there, new changes can be deployed in an automated fashion through the Akamai Terraform Provider. Now, also, it is possible to create a master template for your Akamai delivery configurations. With the use of Akamai variables, you can easily recreate existing configurations and just update them, for instance, for your origin settings, your CP codes, and again, deploy them easily. Think about it if you have test and QA environments. Now, also, of course, we've showed creating a brand new configuration in our demo today. But now that we have that configuration, or you export your existing configuration, it's actually very easy to modify your Akamai delivery configuration JSON and make functional changes to it and deploy them to either staging and production. Now, with the current functionality in the Akamai Terraform Provider, you should be able to, again, fully manage your DNS and load balancing, as well as your delivery configurations inside of Akamai, but also your origin infrastructure that you might have with providers available. With the upcoming functionality on our roadmap, we believe that the Akamai Terraform Provider will be able to support the majority of your use cases and can become a very powerful tool in your DevOps toolbox. Now, before we move on to the Q&A section of the webinar, it is important to point out where you can find more information, and links can be found in the resources section on your screen. On the developer.akamai.com website, you can find an accompanying blog post that documents this webinar, as well as explain managing Akamai-as-Code with Terraform. It will also detail links on how to install the Akamai development environment, which includes Terraform and the Terraform CLI package, but also links, of course, to the official Akamai Terraform Provider documentation on HashiCorp's website, the Terraform Provider GitHub repository, where you can also find great code examples in case you want to start from scratch. We recommend keeping an eye out on developer.akamai.com blog, where we will be posting more Akamai Terraform use cases in the future. And again, we're very eager for your feedback, so please let us know if this can help you in your DevOps workflows and how you will use this in the future, and if you have any recommendations or requirements. This ends our main program today. However, we will use the remaining time today to answer your questions, so thanks for the excellent questions in the chat so far. And also stick around, because after the Q&A, we will have a great quiz.